All right, you guys, welcome to Monday Night Live. Tonight is a much anticipated topic. Protein, the mighty superhero of macros, even though poor protein is usually the least fun of all three macros to fill, isn't it? It's always that you have to have more prep, more prep, more prep, more prep, right? So that's why a lot of times it is easier for you to have something like a bar, or you guys saw me doing the protein style overnight oatmeal. A lot of people have been trying that and adding different nut butters to actually fill the fat profile of that meal. I actually did mine with a little bit more fat because I used a little bit higher fat protein powder, and I also used a little bit higher fat instant oatmeal. So if you guys get the pre-made oats and they're the little cups, those are usually like 5 to 11 grams of fat, which would already fill some of your fat profiles for lower fat people who do not have as many dietary fats yet. So protein is pretty easy to supplement. Obviously, the very best forms of supplementation for protein is going to be the isolate or the blend whey proteins, because those are going to have a complete amino profile, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. I'm going to actually move this down just a little bit so I can relax into my seat, because I've been standing. You can see my standing desk behind me today. Much better on days where I've been sitting a lot. I sat pretty much all day on Friday, quite a bit of the day on Saturday, and then yesterday I went over my taxes, which is always a really fun thing. So I was sitting a little bit yesterday too. So I want to talk about the functions of protein first, so that you guys understand why proteins are so important. And then we're going to get into the logistics between why we as omnivores need to have a good balance of animal protein versus vegan protein. So first and foremost, protein is very, very important for satiation. If you're hungry between meals, I've been telling people on the Voxer, add another ounce to 1.5 ounces or 2 ounces of protein to the meal before you're getting hungry. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm getting hungry between my lunch and dinner meal now. And I'm like, well, your lunch meal then does maybe not have enough protein or fat or fiber, or maybe all three, right? But protein is usually the reason that you are starting to get hungry. So I was talking about not supplementing so much, because we don't need to, but that means that you have to prep more, doesn't it? And having more whole protein at your meals, because protein is 100% responsible for recovery. And along with carbs, it is the perfect muscle repair, tissue repair, anabolic macro, okay? It is the most anabolic, which means muscle building, and in addition to that, muscle sparing, which becomes very, very important as we age. Protein, along with sufficient calorie intake as we age, is going to keep us from experiencing sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle mass as we age or over time. Protein also keeps glucose very stable alongside fiber and fat. If we don't have enough dietary fat or fiber at certain meals, protein can kind of jump in as a superhero rescue mission, right? But you're probably going to be hungrier more quickly if you only do a high protein, low fat, low fiber meal that might be a little higher in carbs, because as we talked about last week, carbohydrates are all used for glucose. It's the rate at which carbs are used that's important, right? So if we eat a high carb meal, let's say 50 to 70 grams of carbs, but we have very low protein, lower dietary fiber in that meal, and the protein and the fat is, the fat is lower, but the protein is higher, you're probably going to get hungrier a little bit sooner. So let me break that down again. I'm sorry I made that mistake. So let's say we have a meal that's higher in protein, lower in dietary fat, high in carbohydrates, right? We know that carbohydrates drive hunger because carbs are first in line to be used as energy sources, aren't they? So if they are first in line to be used, our body's kind of going to zip through those carbs. It's then going to go to protein maybe as a reserve energy source, and fat, and it will start burning the fat. And then if it has anything else, that if it's maybe too long between eating, then your body will start to signal hunger, right? Insulin, it needs a little bit more. And this will allow for second energy source to be used just a little bit and tapped to the end, but then the body might actually go after some protein. So protein, a function of protein is that protein can be used as an energy source if needed. So when people are dieting and they don't have as many carbs and fat as energy sources, the body may intermittently use protein, cycle between protein if it has too little carbs or fat at one meal. This is why meal pairing is so important before you learn how to actually go into a greater calorie deficit after your reverse diet, which I'm going to be talking about week after next. Super excited about that one. So it's kind of a wonderful thing to learn about all these small proponents before we put them into this equation that will help you guys more successfully maintain your fat loss, because the goal is really to maintain the fat loss that we actually achieve while we are in the program than when we go on our own, right? And that's another reason why we want to measure our food on the food scale, because we want to be able to see, what does 4 ounces of salmon look like cooked? What does a cup of rice look like on your plate? All of these things are going to be very important, because you are not going to be using your food scale for every single nitpicking meal when you go into maintenance when you've reached your goal. However, you're going to see better results if you do stay close to the scale and not get too far off the scale, where maybe one day you scale weigh everything pretty perfectly and the next day you only do half of your day, okay? And the rest of the day you actually estimate and hit your macros. That is what I have been doing successfully for 5 years. Now, again, whenever I do a calorie deficit or I want to get ready for something, I will then go back to putting every single thing on the food scale for that time frame. In fact, I'm doing that right now for the 45-day challenge at F45. I will tell you, these kids that run F45, they're in their 20s and they were just floored. They're like, man, you are a machine. My BMI was 21.5. My lean body mass was 78 pounds. I was 17.2% body fat, which is pretty awesome, especially coming out of COVID, you know. But I wanted to fine tune a few things, and that is I would really like to put on a little bit more lean body mass and maybe jump my diet or my body fat down 1.5–2% by the end of this 45-day challenge. And they were like, you have such obtainable goals. And I'm like, I'm a nutrition coach. I have to be realistic. I would love to be ideal, but I'm 43 and you guys are in your mid-20s, okay? So let's not lie to ourselves. But at any rate, you know, they were like, man, you know, how do you stay this way all the time? And I'm like, I have periods where I am more loosely tracking than I am tightly tracking. And that is what keeps me motivated to stay on my nutrition plan too, is I have periods where I know I'm going to have 2 or 3 months of more loose tracking, eating out, having more fun. And then I'm going to go back to putting things on the scale for 45 to 60 days. And that's how I stay very fit and, you know, in pretty good shape. There are times where I get a little bit more carried away, and just like you guys might do, that's when you remind yourself to tap the brakes and pull it in. So the second function of protein is to act as a hormone chemical messenger. So proteins act as a chemical messenger that will assist in communication between many important organs like the GI and the brain, right? So if that chemical pathway is interrupted because you're not getting enough, 1, calories, and 2, protein, you might start to have that sluggishness and think it's something like sugar or something like carbs or something like fat. I swear people always go to the things that the media and the internet demonize first, which is sugar, carbs, and then dietary fats, okay? And usually it's just sugar and carbs. It's like sugar and carbs are the bad guy, and really carbohydrates are like one of the most neutral macros with so many different objectives and so many different things that they assist with, that they're not the second superhero, but they're tied for second with fats for being pretty darn important in the plan, right? Especially if you train. So protein, one of the functions of protein is to be a hormone chemical messenger, and it will assist in this communication between all of these very important organs in our body. Number 3 would be to maintain and build tissue or repair tissue processes, right? So when you tear muscle fiber when you're working out, then that repair process happens. And that's why protein is really important post-training, and why I actually have kind of a faster protein in your actual nutrition plan when you start with me, because it would be better if we had a slight anabolic window. It would be better to shuttle that protein in fairly quickly after training so that that repair process can happen immediately or as soon as possible, right? So if we have a slight advantage, then we know that that protein would be a perfect thing to get in post-training, and the ISO 100 is going to be very fast. It'll be in your system within 30 minutes, while real protein sources like animal protein sources, things like chicken breast, Greek yogurt, that type of thing, that'll be in your system within probably 45 minutes to an hour, but the ISO 100 will be in very, very quickly. Stephanie, you are so sweet. Thank you very much. My New Year's resolution this year was to get dressed up for every single Monday Night Live, just like I'm going to an office, because we really aren't going anywhere right now with all these weird lockdowns and things. So I am sticking true to my New Year's resolution by getting dressed and ready for my Monday Night Live as if I was going to speak in front of a lot of people. Because you guys are a very important audience to me, and I think it's extremely important that you have pride in the way that you look and carry yourself. So that was my number 1 goal for this year since 2020. We didn't have to get dressed up to go anywhere, did we, guys? So then we go back to number 4 most important function of protein, and that is going to be, and this one's going to be a very big shocker to even my advanced students who have been with me a long time, and that is enzyme production. I bet a lot of you did not know that protein functions as a role of speeding up this rate at which metabolic processes and functions can occur in the body. Protein does this. It assists in that process. So that is one of the functions of protein, is enzyme production. Next is my very favorite, because I'm a nutritionist, right? And that is transportation. So proteins act as a catalyst or transport proteins, and they enable the correct nutrients to get into the right tissues. So they have like a lock and key effect, which is really important. And that's one of the major roles that protein plays. And that's why I wanted to make sure that you guys understand that if you are vegan and you do not eat any animal protein whatsoever, you need to make sure that you listen to the last half of this lecture. And again, this is not to go against vegans, but we really have got to make sure that these transport proteins shuttle into these tissues correctly. And we're going to have to supplement properly for that if you're vegan, because what we know is that these aminos will not get into your diet without supplementation in that case. Okay. And then last but not least, which I touched on before, was proteins can be used as an energy source if needed. Again, people who might need a little bit more protein are people who are younger, athletic, and by younger, I mean developing individuals, young children, adolescents, or elderly people, which we've seen now conclusively in the data that, especially on PubMed, the data does show now, and a lot of it done by Brad Schoenfeld and Alan Aragon, that elderly people, when we look at the elderly populations versus just obese populations in most of these studies, the elderly people did need more protein to stave off sarcopenia and to keep them in a healthy range for homeostasis, okay? So protein is a pretty important factor. I am now going to go into the bottom line with animal proteins and why animal proteins are very important. Now, I don't want you guys to think that I'm being biased, because we are omnivores, meaning we eat both plants and animals, don't we? Well, there was a reason for this. And that is going to be the pretense of this last portion here. So basically, proteins are made up of amino acids. These are smaller molecules strung together by chemical bonds. They look kind of like a pearl necklace. And these little aminos are the pearls on the necklace. Now you're going to remember that, right? So picture a pearl necklace and these little amino small molecules that are strung together by chemical bonds. So what's really wonderful is that protein obviously serves an essential part of the diet because of its functions that I just went through, but also because Animal protein is and are the highest quality proteins that the body needs in order to be complete, hitting all 20 proteins, where we actually lack one or more of these amino acids normally every day in our daily intake. So again, we don't have to go overboard with overanalyzing proteins, but we do want to make sure that if plant sources lack more of these amino acids, that we are actually getting that deficit made up for by combining plant proteins that would actually give us a full amino profile, right? So again, vegans definitely are going to have to supplement. They need more mineral supplementation by nature because they don't get all the B vitamins and rich iron and everything from the red meat. And that's why when people tell me they don't eat red meat, I ask them why. And most of the time it's because there's these preconceived notions and also myths, which we will talk about in another couple weeks, based around red meat being bad or causing cancer, which, by the way, neither are true in the literature. However, for cancer patients, and this is where we can get into nutrigenomics a little bit, and also gut microbiome, and also inflammation. Traditionally, when somebody has cancer, I wouldn't give them a lot of processed meat or red meat or pork or anything like that, because again, when we look at the term processed, that means that it is taken out of its natural state. It is now put onto a longer shelf life. And to do that, we have to add what? That's right, chemicals and processing agents. So that's really the problem. Same thing when we look at like organic or GMO and non-GMO. If that's something that you guys would like to hear more about, let me know, and I'll go into that on the Myth Busting Monday Night Live in a few weeks. But vegans definitely will have to supplement because, again, in order to get these complete proteins, there are 20 different aminos. 9 are not found in the human body and are actually deemed essential amino acids, right? And a lot of you think of them as branch chain amino acids, or the drink that tastes really good that's artificially sweetened, that a lot of people come to me actually drinking and they ask if they can stay on it. And I say you can, but you're actually getting all of your essential amino acids in my diet plan. So you don't have to drink them and they're not doing anything of benefit. But if you like the taste, great. You could get the same taste from Crystal Light. Okay, so we need to actually eat these to get these into the body and have them be a complete protein. And in order to do that, they must contain all 9 in roughly equal amounts, all 9 of the essential amino acids that we're missing in equal amounts, primarily found in animal proteins and meat products. Now, again, like I said before, we only need a certain amount of these proteins. We do not need to run overboard. We do not need to get all caught up on protein type. If you are actually rotating your foods, you're having beef and chicken, then you're doing lentils and beans, beans and rice, rice and cheese, beans and rice with cheese, all of these different combos, which I'm going to talk about here in the next couple minutes, you are going to be fine, okay? And if you're also adding fruits and vegetables into your diet, you're getting protein there. A lot of us don't know that we get a lot of protein from our carb sources if we're actually mindful about our carb sources. So I'm going to give you those beautiful carb sources that have very high protein. Again, protein is important, and most important for fat loss and muscle gaining and retaining, because again, protein is going to be that building block, that amino base for repair. After we've torn muscle fiber, it will also act as the superhero that takes over if carbs and fat get too low, right? We know that it can be an energy source if it's needed. So it's really like the rescue macro. And when you don't get enough, that's where you start to see that muscle loss. I just had a conversation with one of my amazing clients today. She actually runs a CrossFit gym, and she had some pretty strict goals for herself, which she has been able to stick very true to. And I just posted her progress photos on our page. She gave me the okay to do that. And her name is Lauren. And today my feedback to her was, I want to make sure that I see your in-body because I want to make sure that I'm running right in line with your protein requirements and carbs so that we retain all of the lean body mass that you have worked so hard to build. Because what's the point in losing muscle mass while you're dieting if now that's going to lower your metabolic capacity and now you're not going to look as good, right? Because you don't have that beautiful muscle mass underneath there to make this sculpture look so gorgeous and so handsome when you get done chiseling away all that body fat, right? So that's why it's super important to make sure that protein requirements and protein needs are met. And I know you guys get sick of hearing me nag you about it, but you can see now that there are a lot of important functions of protein. Plant-based supplements that have L-leucine are also going to balance out that amino complete profile. So that is going to be one of the aminos that is most important as a building block for muscle and also to keep you from getting sarcopenia as you age, meaning muscle sparing or muscle loss as we age. And a lot of people, as they age, they don't have the taste and they don't have the hormone profile for hunger. They've also actually intermittent fasted and cut calories for so many years that their metabolism's usually at a dead crawl. And a lot of you are nodding your head, yes, 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 I have a mom and dad like this, or yes, I have an aunt and uncle. So what ends up happening is not that they go into fat storage mode. It's just that the body and the metabolism will adapt to less intake, which is very important for you guys to remember as we drop calories in your diet. When we do go to drop, you might see that there is a little bit of a shift in your mental capacity. You might not be in as good of a mood. You might have a little bit of a sluggish sex drive for a little while. But that won't happen if you do things well. If you do things the way that I teach you how to do it, and a lot of you know because you're going back and forth with me on the Voxer on a pretty regular basis in the beginning, asking lots of questions. And after that kind of 90-day period, I will start to tell you, even when you're nearing that 90-day period, like, here's what you can expect. So there's some hurdles coming up. And they might not even be hurdles for you because you guys are so finely conditioned and tuned to know what to expect from the Monday Night Live sessions that you can jump those hurdles as they come. One of those is going to be nighttime hunger. And I even see that in the reverse diet where we are actually adding calories. The metabolism starts to pick up so beautiful, like it's got high octane fuel now, that it starts ripping through those calories faster than we can add them. So if that does happen and you have several nights in a row where you've hit your macros perfectly, you didn't have haphazard tracking, and you're like, oh my gosh, I am sitting here and I am actually hungry now, you need to let your coach know right away, okay? So now if we go to the vegan sources of protein as omnivores that we can add together with our animal proteins that will increase our protein intake and our awesome amino profile, those would be things like quinoa. Okay, so quinoa, I don't particularly care for, but a lot of people love it. It is a carb, fiber, iron source. You can cook with it. You can use it in baked goods. People like it in a lot of their bowls, in the ahi poke tuna bowls, in the salmon bowls. They love it with steak. So quinoa has 8 grams of protein per serving. It's a wonderful carb and protein source. I know you guys are going to be mind blown right now. Buckwheat is an offspring of rhubarb, not wheat. It is gluten-free. It is awesome as a flour. It is awesome in gluten-free pancakes. It bases a lot of times as a hot cereal and is called buckwheat groats. So if you see that, don't be overly excited. That's correct. That's the hot cereal version. That's the one that I use. I love it. It kind of looks like oatmeal and it's a gluten-free source. So again, you want to maybe also try buckwheat cereal because it will keep your glucose a little bit more balanced as well. It's very low glycemic, especially when it's paired with a protein, fat, and fiber, like you guys are professionals at doing. Soy. So there's a lot of controversy on soy. I won't get too much into it tonight because I've got to keep this rolling because I've got a couple more spreadsheets to get to this evening. But soy has a very high amino profile and the type does matter. So tempeh and tofu are actually fermented versions of soy where the beans actually get denatured just slightly, and this dilutes the amount of protein quality that you will get in that soy product. So you might stick with something that is a little bit higher quality soy product. Rice and beans are also a complete protein. A lot of you guys already eat those in your meals already. coupled together. And again, don't go overboard on the beans, because a lot of you are having GI distress when you're eating too much fiber now, because your body really does like that constant 3 to 5 grams of fiber at every meal. It's easy on the GI. It's wonderful for blood sugar, and we really don't need to be going a whole lot higher than that, right? So Ezekiel bread is wonderful because, again, they take wheat, barley, beans, spelt, and they put all of this into a beautiful bread. And if you've read the book of Ezekiel 4:9, you'll understand that these were the great essentials that the biblical characters did eat, right? They're high in micronutrient value, very, very high in fiber, and they are a wholesome, wonderful serving of protein at 8 grams of protein per serving, okay? So let's say you did an egg sandwich and you actually put the egg and avocado on the Ezekiel bread. You are going to get protein in the bread, protein in the avocado, and protein in the egg. And now you don't have to prep all of this crazy lean meat and all of this shrimp and all of this fish and stuff, because you have some go-to items that are actually going to help you balance out those beautiful vegan sources of protein with animal sources of protein, right? Seitan. So a lot of people do not know about this. It's spelled Seitan, has 21 grams of protein per 1 cup serving. It is a gluten-free, it is a glutinous food, so gluten-free populations should not consume this. Again, this is 21 grams of protein. It tastes a lot. Now, a lot of people actually prep it with like a soy sauce. So it kind of tastes like tofu. To me, it's a little tougher. It's got kind of the consistency of like a harder cheese, in my opinion. And again, you guys, remember, we're omnivores, so we should be eating combinations of both of these things. If you love vegetables and fruit, just make sure that you are not over consuming fiber, because again, the number one culprit of GI discomfort is consuming too much fiber at one meal, or too much fiber throughout the entire day, accumulated throughout the day, if you will. I've been looking at spreadsheets all day today, and I have seen also in the dietary logs in MyFitnessPal that a lot of you are using a ton of prepackaged foods and supplements. So I want you to make sure that you use only these high quality prepackaged foods and supplements when you're lazy. I also only want you to use protein powder right now if you're in a calorie deficit, if you need it after training to fill your protein requirements at night after you have your last meal, but kind of as an emergency or insurance system. Because I would like you to get geared to eating more of your food from solid sources, making sure that your thermic effect of food is being optimized, that would be my preference. So you can see that in your programming, I gave you snack options. A lot of those did not contain a protein supplement. A lot of those actually had yogurts or, different forms of protein that you could use. A lot of you are really liking the mozzarella sticks. I like that. That's wonderful. But let's not do 6 or 7 of those a day. So that was just something that I wanted to kind of remind you guys about. We are doing very well with food rotation. So I am glad that you guys got that memo the first week back in January to rotate your foods so that you do not get food fatigue. It is extremely important to keep things fresh, new, and innovative. And if you're going to create new dinner items, new dinner meals, and you need a little help with that the night before or the day before, please just hit me on the Voxer. Let me know what you're going to prep. If you're not quite sure on the macro values of those, I'll help you out with that so you can get those into your system. Because the more items we get put into our MyFitPal system, the less intimidating this process is the first month, right? And for those of you who've been tracking macros for many years now, you guys know it's always easy after you've done it for a few years, but go back to that first month when you first started putting everything into your system, and it's difficult. So I'm going to give you a couple perfect examples of what a perfect protein dish would look like with animal protein and vegetable protein. So surf and turf bowl. We have an ahi tuna. We have a fillet of salmon. We've got quinoa, maybe a quarter cup of quinoa, a quarter cup of beans, a quarter cup of rice, and maybe a little bit of corn sprinkled on top, right? Avocado, ginger if you like it, curry seasoning, spices, and maybe a veggie. That's a perfect meal. It's very high volume, meaning it's going to have a lot of area. It's going to fill up a lot of area in that bowl or on your plate. It also has wonderful omega-3 fats. It has ginger, which is awesome for digestion. If you use soy sauce, that's going to give you a little bit of extra salt, but salt is not bad. Salt is actually very, very good as long as your water is the same every day. So that's something that is a little nugget that I wanted to remind you guys about, that I will continue to remind you about. If your sodium is high one day, just make sure you drink the same amount of water. Water is regulatory. And again, complete proteins are formulated as well as these examples in your program. So if you see your meals in your program, you'll see that Sandy and I are very, very good, and so is Coach Pete, of putting things together with complete proteins, and we use a variety of plants and animal-based proteins. So that is it for tonight. Thank you for tuning in to Monday Night Live, you guys. I've got a couple more videos that I'm going to put out this week. I have been really working hard on content so that I can put out these little tiny reminder videos for you guys just about every couple days, so that all these little things are starting to click and you're more mindful of this. And when you're grocery shopping, you're like, oh, I have a lot of omega-6s and 9s, but I don't have any 3s in my basket. Okay, I'm going to go get some avocados, even though I don't love them. And I'm going to go get some whole eggs, even though they're not my very favorite. I'm going to rotate those in this week to be responsible with your food quality. Take care.